Okay, good day everybody. This is Pietro Paganini from Competere, and we are supporting the European Resource Bank with this seminar or roundtable on the topic of empowering consumers. And with me I have two distinguished speakers. One is Pietro, and I will present Pietro later on. And then we have Ralf Schneider, and I will present Ralf later on. In any case, the bio for the people that are following us online later on and can watch this video recorded. All the information are on the European Resource Bank website. Let's say it's doing a very short introduction. This is a very unusual topic for the European Resource Bank, because for the first time in the history of the European Resource Bank, we talk about nutrition, and we talk about consumers and how to empower the consumers. And at Competere, the think tank, the policy think tank I manage and I've proudly funded almost 15 years ago, we've been focusing for the past years on sustainability and nutrition and all the issues that are related to sustainability and nutrition. And today also we would like to introduce this topic to the liberal, classical liberal and libertarian family that are not used to this. At Competere.eu, we have also a platform that is called Nutrition, Sustainable Nutrition, where we follow topics related to nutrition and topics related to sustainability. Our starting point is not we have to save the planet, that's the usual NGO's approach, but our starting point is there are 7.8 billion people on this planet that have the right to access healthy and secure food, and we need and have to produce this food in a sustainable way. That's our starting point, and so we try to develop the policies that can bring to this sustainable nutrition. So the challenge that we have today, and hopefully we will be develop and elaborating in the next months and years, is to introduce our liberal family to these crucial challenges that concern our liberties, prosperity, and life on our planet. What we want to discuss here partly today and then in the future is hot topics, as we call them. There are more and more in the agenda that have been usually only discussed, let's say, in the left spectrum of the political arena, and not very often in the liberal and in the conservative area. And instead, it's very important to deal with them, to exactly produce more knowledge, to enhance the debate, and to have more balanced policy. Some of these topics are, as I mentioned, sustainable nutrition, food security, that is a very important topic today, resiliency of the supply chains, in other words, how to bring food from producing countries to consuming countries, obesity and related disease, and this is a very hot topic nowadays in Europe, I would say around the world. Food innovation, of course, new foods that can be created through technology and through great invention. More and more governments, and this is the crucial point, more and more governments, particularly the EU, but not just the EU, are introducing legislation, okay, to promote, as the European Commission state, to promote a healthier diet, to fight obesity and related diseases, and to promote sustainability. This is the key, the key point of the Farm to Fork strategy that the European Union is trying to pursue. In fact, the European as a Union, as part of the Farm to Fork strategy, is working on a new regulation to ensure better labeling information, for instance, to help consumers make healthier and more sustainable food choices, and to tackle food waste. And food waste is definitely another big challenge that we have to face. There's a part of the world that is, a small part of the world is consuming more than we probably need, and there is a larger part of the world that does not have access to secure healthier and balanced food and a balanced diet. Why? Because in some countries there is an excess of production and an excess of consumption. The aim that the European Union, for instance, is following is to particularly introduce a standard mandatory front-of-pack nutrition labeling. This is one aspect that the European Union is pursuing, extending a mandatory origin of provenance of information for certain products, revising the rules on date making, use by, and best before dates. There is a global trend, and this is part of the discussion we have today, but not just the full discussion, where there are different labeling systems that are emerging, not just in Europe, recently in Australia, New Zealand, in India, in Europe, and as well in the United States, but also in Central America. This is some of the examples, like the traffic light system, with data, not just with colors, but with data and, let's say, more descriptive information. There is the STAR system that is used in Australia, New Zealand, and is one of the methodology that India wants to apply. There is the famous black dots that you have in some Central American countries, particularly in South American countries like Chile. There is the health food that the FDA in the United States is working on. There are free claims, like the palm oil free claims that are more and more used, particularly in the European Union, or sugar-free and salt-free and many other frees that you can mention on yourself, GMOs-free and so on. And there are other that are more debated. We can discuss some of them today if we have the will and the time, like Nutri Score that has been adopted by France, Germany, Belgium, and other few countries in the European Union. There is the Italian version of the Nutri Score that is the anti-Nutri Score. It's called the Nutri-4. Where there is the reported the daily intake, and what is included in that specific product. And then, since we are in Sweden, there is, I would say, famous for the Swedish people or the Nordic people, is the keyhole that is actually a keyhole. In Competere, we have been working on several of these issues, particularly on the palm oil free labeling and on the palm oil supply chain. And we've been working on the Nutri Score. Actually, the position that we have at Competere is to oppose the Nutri Score. But we want to have a fair debate of this, because this is obviously very important, because it has to do with our diets, it has to do with what we eat, it has to do with whom we are, it has to do with the rest of the world, it has to do with the fact that most of the food we eat and import, particularly in Europe and the United States, is produced elsewhere. I didn't mention, but the European Union is also working on a sustainability plan within the farm to fork, meaning that all food that is coming from producing country has to be, for instance, a deforestation, zero deforestation or deforestation free, that there should be a food traceability of the supply chain. So very important challenges that the European Union is taking. Sometimes they are defined to be too much ideological and too much costly for the collectivity here in Europe. We believe, and that's why we have this debate here with the many people we have, is because we believe that we are at an important change. No matter what you think about global warming and climate change, there are certain challenges that we have to take, and we want to discuss in order to improve knowledge. And sometimes we also have different opinions, like on Nutri Score. Certainly with PER and the organization it works for, we have different opinions, but we have other opinions that are coinciding if we think about investing in supply chains, in food innovation, and so on. So as a think tank, as a policy institute, we are not for supporting one position, but we are in order to contribute to the different positions. So I would like to start, first of all, in thanking Ralf, of course, and just asking Ralf to wait for a few minutes and giving the word to PER. The bio of PER is, of course, on the European Resource Bank website, is also on the Competere website, and PER is actually an expert in nutrition, so don't disappoint us today. We will make it very strict. When we end up talking about nutrition, there's always people in the room asking about calories and the amount of sugar and the amount of fat, if saturated fats are bad or not. But we're not going to talk about that today. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're more correcting about policy, where the food industry is turning. Per has a MSc in nutrition and a PhD in exercise physiology and medical science from the Karolinska Institute, so very prestigious. Per has worked with nutrition and health across all brands and Nestlé, so he works for a specific company here in Sweden. He's also managing the Nordic public affairs team and represent Nestlé in multiple organization and stakeholder engagement. And I assume today you are speaking on behalf of Nestlé, but you're also speaking as a nutritionist and as an expert. And I also want to thank you, and of course Nestlé for being here. And despite we might have different opinions or certain argument, we have to recognize and acknowledge the incredible work that your company has been doing in food innovation and in coming up with more sustainable supply chains and trying to nurture the planet. Because as I said, in all our roundtables that we have with the Austrian economics, actually every last Thursday of the month we have a roundtable with the Austrian Economics Center. And often we have talked about sustainability and often talked about nutrition. And every day, I always start with this, every day, given the 7.8 billion people we have in the world, every day we need to produce 16 trillion kilocalories. That's a huge amount of food that we need every day to provide people with a healthy, secure, and balanced diet. So I think this is the starting point that as classical libertarians, we really have to think about. Too often we haven't talked about that, but I think it's time to enter this type of discussion. So Per, I stop here. I'm Italian, so I tend to take it too long. Per would be definitely shorter, more concise. I leave the floor and the slides as well that you have.
All right, thank you, Pietro.
And give Per a big applause.
Although we might differ on Nutri Score, we definitely agree on the importance of sustainable nutrition.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, let's see the technicalities.
You worked before, so you should work now.
Yeah.
That's what I tell my students all the time is test and test twice and 3 times, because when you do it, that doesn't. Here it goes.
There you go. All right. So yes, thank you for the presentation, Pietro. Yes, as a nutritionist, this is a new type of forum for me. Usually I speak to experts within other areas, nutrition and health, of course. So I'm very happy to be invited here. It's I've been looking forward to this for a while, actually. And Nestlé, most of people have heard about us. For you who hasn't, I can just say that with a turnover of about 87 billion Swiss francs or euros, we are the world's largest food and beverage company. So we have a very broad portfolio with main categories within coffee, brands like Nespresso and Nescafe, but also local brands like Soyagas. Then of course we get baby food, clinical nutrition, we have pet food, we have food, plant-based food, we got pretty much everything. So it's almost like when you work at Nestlé, you just find out a new brand or something every day. It's like, oh, is that ours? Oh, right, okay. Yeah. That's how it is, yes. And I will tell you about how we work. Well, as I mentioned, we are sustainable nutrition is very important to us. So planetary health, but also individual health. And we are working quite a lot. We've done so for quite a while to improve the healthiness of our portfolio. And I will start with talking a bit about that, and then later on I will tell you a bit more about why our position within Nutri Score. So, all right. So, as I mentioned, we've been working for a few decades to improve our portfolio, to make it more healthy. And globally, in the past 7 years alone, we have reduced sugar and salt content by about 14 to 15% in all products which will not align with the World Health Organization's guidelines. So basically, the products that contains a lot of sugar and salt, we have worked a lot with reducing sugar and salt. So, and this is actually my favorite example, and this is the Nesquik breakfast cereal. This is probably the product I would say that receives the most of criticism. And we've been working with it since 2003, and as you can see on the figure, the blue pillar is for sugar, how we reduce the sugar, and then the red pillar is with the amount of whole grain in the product. This we've done stepwise, so with a few years in between, we've lowered the amount of sugar and increased the amount of whole grain in that product. And as you can see, between 2003 and 2021, it's a completely new product. And the reason why we do it stepwise is to keep the consumer on the journey. Because if we go from 2003 to 2021, the change in taste would be too pronounced, and we would lose the consumer. They would go to Kellogg's or something and take another high sugar product. We would have lost the product, and the consumer wouldn't have gained a health benefit. So this is, of course, not a way to do it. We need to do it stepwise in small steps. But we still do it, and we work with it quite a lot. As you see, it's a 34% reduction of sugar in that product. And we also do it, we launch new healthy products. This one we launched a few years ago, Nestlé Alphabet, contains even further 35% less sugar. So this is almost, we're in Sweden, so this is almost a keyhole product. But it's so close, it's like 1 gram of sugar per 100 gram away from being able to achieve the keyhole. But it's important. So being a small market, they don't prioritize our health labels. So, okay, that is how we work with our products. So just to understand that this is more than just talk for us. We do it, we've done it for a long time, and we do it for real. And when we do it, we of course want to guide the consumers as well. And this we do with on-pack messaging, and this one, Nutri Score, is something that we think is a very good tool to us. And basically, I will tell you a bit about what Nutri Score is, just to understand, because there's a lot of labels out there. People don't really know what it is and how it works. So basically, I assume you've all seen the nutrition declaration on pack that is mandatory on all foods. So we can easily check the information, but it's quite difficult. It takes some time. It's not so clear with the numbers, the percentages, and so on. It can be a bit confusing. Also, when you're standing there in the store, can't really pick up a product, start looking at that one. It takes some time. It takes too long time. People do not do it. So what Nutri Score is, it simply translates that information into something that people can use and will use, and that's accessible for consumers. So instead of having this nutrition declaration, they use an algorithm to translate the amount of energy, the amount of salt, sugar, fiber, vegetables, fruit, grains, legumes, olive oil, and so on into a number, a graded scale between A to E with colors. So it's very easy to see and it's very easy to understand. Another strength of Nutri Score is that it's presented on pack, in front of the pack, on the lower third of the bottom of the product. So it's very easy to see. When you walk into a store, it's in your face. So, no people go into a store and think about, okay, all right, today I'm going to look for that label. Where is it? It's on the back of the pack. Or is it? No, it's right in your face. You can think about soccer or whatever, or what you're going to cook or so on. But when you're in the store, you see it. So that's really a strength of the label. And this, of course, well, to go through the history, this was implemented by the French public health authorities, so there's no commercial interest in the development of the product, of the label. It's used, as Pietro said, it's used by, I think it's 7 countries, recommended by the public health authorities in 7 countries in the EU. So this means almost half of the population in the EU are using Nutri Score. And it is, today it's on voluntary basis. Hopefully it will be a mandatory basis in the future. But it is voluntary, and even though it's voluntary, it's used by about 50% of companies or products in France. So, the companies embrace it, as we do, and it got more support than that actually. So, when you look at the support for a mandatory Nutri Score, well, of course you have the public health authorities in all the countries. You have the WHO through the International Agency for Research on Cancer. You have the European Heart Network, the BUC, the Consumer Association, that is quite a strong voice for enabling the consumers to make informed choices. On a Nordic level, even though we have the keyhole, this is a baby to the authorities and to a lot of people. It's been around there for 30 years. It's the oldest health logo in the world, I think. Yeah, I think so. But even so, we have to support the Danish Diabetes Association, the Danish Heart Association, and the Cancer Association. They support Nutri Score. And also the consumer associations here in the Nordics as well. And what's actually quite interesting, that only a week ago, a month ago I think it was, the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry of Finland, they wrote on their blog that they support a mandatory Nutri Score in Europe. And even if it were not to be mandatory, they would seriously consider a Nutri Score implementing Nutri Score in Finland. So that's a big step for the Nordics. And okay, if we look at Nutri Score at Nestlé, so we have already implemented it in the countries where it's recommended by the public health authorities, looking into other countries as well. But of course, we follow the local recommendations. We use the local symbols in other countries, so the keyhole in the Nordics and the UK traffic light in the UK. We also implemented it for reformulation of products. So we have the our plant-based portfolio. We reformulated 25% of that one using Nutri Score. And we also, another example is the pizzas. We reformulated 50% of our pizzas to be in France. And this is how we can use it. It's very easy when you reformulate product. You can find something, you can lower the salt a bit, you can lower the sugar a bit, perhaps increase the fibers a bit to do something with the product, always to get a reward to go to the next level. And this is something, this is a great incentive for industry when they reformulate products, is to be able to communicate this to consumers. And that is an area which is very regulated today. We have very low opportunities to communicate, to say what we're doing to consumers. We have a few health claims, a few messages we can use on pack, but we can't really do much with that. So this is a way of going around those regulations and finding a way to tell the consumers the work that we do. So, all right. So our position then, we summarize it here. Of course, we want a mandatory Nutri Score in Europe. In the EU, we think that's a good option for public health, based on a sound and independent science. You know, you've seen the supported gut already, so the support is growing. It's transparent and effective with consumers. Actually, the design with the color-coded graded scale, it's been shown to be for consumers both they understand it, they prefer it, it even seem to have a positive impact on purchase behavior as well. So there is strong scientific background behind both the design and the algorithm. It drives reformulation, as I showed you, and the harmonization across Europe. Today, as I told you also, we have all these logos all over Europe. We have the keyhole, the Nutri-Inform, we have the UK traffic light, and this is of course causing trade barriers that one harmonized label would breach. So, and this is of course something we want. And yes, of course, we see this as a tool that we can use and it's helpful. It can make an impact on public health, but it's also something we can use and communicate to consumers. It enables the consumers to make informed choices, and it also, of course, in our aim to create a more sustainable nutrition, sustainable health within Europe. There are much worse options on the table as well when it comes to taxations of ingredients of food groups, or when it comes to regulations like maximum levels of sugars and so on that would inhibit innovation. So this is of course our preferable option. And it aligns well with Nordic dietary guidelines. This is a local discussion here in the Nordics, where we say, okay, this is a French, it's designed according to French traditions, French food customs, but you know, the pattern is quite similar across Europe. We eat too much salt, we eat too much fiber and so on, and this is pretty much pinpointed by Nutri Score. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That was mine.
Thank you so much, Per.
Thank you.
Just for a short note, without being too much technical, because we're not, can you explain what the keyhole is?
Yeah.
Because I'm familiar in Sweden, but most people maybe are not.
Yeah, so the keyhole, that's a binary logo, so it's either on or off, and it has 36 different food groups with different criteria. So it accounts for fiber, salt, sugar, and a few other things as well. So, you know, each food group, if you reach this criteria, then you can put it on the product logo. It's developed and owned by the Swedish food agency.
So when you go to the supermarket here in Sweden, if you see a product with a keyhole, it means it's supposed to be healthy.
Exactly.
Healthy.
Yeah.
So, and this was created in Sweden years ago.
30 years ago, so it's a long tradition.
Okay, thank you so much, Per. Then we want to take some questions, but let me introduce our second speaker. You want to remain here as you are in the center. That's Ralf Schneider. Ralf Schneider is working as a senior consultant in media for clients in Europe since 2002, and since 1987, he's working as a media consultant, coach, author, director, and media producer in Munich. So he's obviously German. He is the president of the Association of the European Journalists in Germany, and also serves as a member of the board at the Taxpayer Association of Europe. So we suppose you are a strong supporter of government spending. Thank you very much for having you here. And I want to give you the floor, of course, for your position. Let's not forget that our discussion was on the different labeling system we're having in Europe. That is a discussion is ongoing, but also the fact that there's a lot going on taxation for sugar, for instance, saturated fats and salt are seen, but also Per in a way touch upon them as enemies for our health. And I know that many people in the libertarian community are opposing taxes on different products or products rich in something, but you know, very strong libertarians are also arguing, I want to eat whatever I want to eat, no matter whether it's good or bad for my health. I make my own choice. So live up to freedom.
Yes.
Or eat whatever you want or we want. Your floor, Ron.
Thank you very much, Pietro. It's a case we have to speak about. I advise since many years Federal Association of Food Production in Germany, and therefore I produced many movies for this topic, and I have to produce these movies with specialists, with colleagues from you, yes, with scientists which are very well known, and so every time.
Now you have Per. Right?
Yes. Every time I ask, tell me, what is healthy food? And the majority, I think 80%, since 20 years, says, don't believe it, Ralf. There is no healthy food. It is, there are no evidences, nothing. Yes, yes, we have a spirit, a time spirit, and there is against sugar. But sugar is one of the very elementary nutritions we need. In the mother, the water for the baby is sweet. And 1,000 years ago, what was sweet we could eat, and what was not sweet, what was bitter, we had to be away from it. So we are used to sweet, and I think the war, the battle against sugar, for example, is the wrong way. On this and on this and on this, we should write, this can afford your health, this will damage your health, because you will not move again thanks to your smartphone, thanks to your television, and that's the problem, not the way we are eating. But let's go back. You are quite right. I am libertarian, and so
That's why you're here.
yes, and so I
You would be
think
surprised.
we should have few politics. Yes, few, and we should not try to take the people at our hand and say, so here you will go. Because as a German, I'm little scared about that, because that was Adolf Hitler. He has said we need healthy people, and we have an idea. We say shouldn't smoke, they have to eat this, how do you call Vollkorn bread? Wie heißt es auf Englisch? Vollkorn bread.
This is nutrition, this is a waste of nutrition.
Full
Yes.
grain.
Full grain.
Full grain. Full grain. You should eat full grain bread, and they had a strong method what the people should do to have the healthy body of the people. Yes, and so I think it's good that these times are long ago. So I don't want to dictate the people what they should eat. And Nutri Score, I worked on this issue also since so much years. And first of all, we went to England with our television team and asked the people, do you know the Nutri Score? And I asked, no, Paganini. It's on every, it's also mandatory, it's free, but it's on very much products. And we asked and said, no, I never heard from it. What should so? And then, if we found people who knew the Nutri Score, what did they say? Yes, I know it very much because I only buy red. Because I know then it's good for me and then it's tasty, so only red I will buy. And we were...
That's very libertarian.
We were scared. No, it was the people, yes. So, and then we went to France and did the same, and also it was so that the people said, "No, it's complicated, and why should I look on this?" And look, you have an 80-year-old multimorbid with many diseases man going to the supermarket to buy nutrition. So, and he looks at the Nutri Score and says, green. Yes, I have to buy green. And beneath him comes triathlete, 25 years, sportler, professional sportler, goes into the supermarket and said, okay, I have to look green. And do you think, really, that the 80-year multimorbid man and the super sportler should eat the same? No, definitely not. And turning in a little far, this Nutri Score shows that we should really look individual what people can eat, what we should offer them to eat. And I'm with you. We can give them information, for example, in the school. And it has nothing to do with sustainable and supply chain, and that's other, yes. But to tell healthy food and not healthy food is, I think, a very, very special way, driven by the spirit of the time.
Oh, there's already a question. You want to pick the question? You finished?
Yes.
You want the question?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you
Not
so
the
much,
first time.
Ralf. I want also maybe Per has something to add. We go back to Per. Maybe I also give very quickly our opinion, but I want the debate to be very much balanced, and I also want to reiterate that our purpose here is not to say we are standing on one side or the other. It's not an electoral situation, but it's a knowledge development. And I have to say that the debate is important because first of all, there is a legislative process where many of us could be very much part of. And second of all, because there is obviously a problem. There is a problem of nutrition, nurturing the planet, and I think Nestlé is doing a tremendous job in this, but there is also a problem with a lot of the problem of obesity, or the problem of related diseases. With obesity, the position of the World Health Organization as well. So I think there is very much to talk about, and unfortunately we have only 1 hour. You mentioned very interesting things. We're not talking today, otherwise if we talk about the tax on sugar, we will have finally, more people in the room. The room is already full, but we will have more people in the room. And I love your joke about sugar, because before pandemic actually, I was in a conference in Turin and we were talking about sugar free, and I said exactly the same example. If you tax a drink because of sugar, then you should start taxing, iPhones and video games and even couches. And in the room there was a lot of discussion, because then I had some libertarian friends say, no, that's a bad example, because then the government would tax everything. And we start taxing our time. But it was, of course, a provocation in that. So let's go to the room, since we have many people and many hands. Let's go there. We have the first one. Also introduce yourself.
Mike Jäger, Taxpayers Europe and German Bavaria. So please don't mention what is healthy and not, and that politics should do something, because I think it's driven by the EU Commission, and they want to regulate, and I think it's a question of education. So my son is older in the room. I had to show him what he can do with sports or everything. It's a kind of training of parents. So I dislike if the state is telling us what we have to do. And it's good if Nestlé, the leading corporate in nutrition, shows it as an indicator. But I dislike if anyone tells me what I have to eat, what is good for me or not. So I think it's the availability of food worldwide. It's much more important than to have a welfare state like the Western world or in the US to educate people what to eat. For sure, the Americans are too fat. I know why I have too many weight, because I didn't do my sports as in former years, so I have to change my life. But I try now. But I think it's a wrong approach if it's only the political pressure that corporates react. If you have now less sugar, it's nice. If it's still tasty, it's also nice. But mostly the sugar inside was because of lower cost of production and this background. So I think it's important the market should decide. I won't decide. If you produce a new product and consumer like it, it's fine. If they dislike it, I think you will not offer it anymore. So I think it's for us, it's high time to say, listen, it's nice, European Commission, if you do this, but we are forced with directives, and I dislike directives. If it's a free entrepreneurial decision, I like it, because then you go to market. But I dislike if the government, if Commission is telling us and making regulations on food, because I think they have no plan at all.
Thank you. It was more a statement than a question, but I also give the chance to react.
Horst Seitz from Essen Europe of the European People's Party. We had 2010, yeah, already the rapporteur Renate Sommer, who was against the ample, because she says there is no real evidence. So we know that evidence is always different. Sometimes, yeah, the science gives you several options. But I have to say the liberals and also the conservatives are in general against this, because we have a different point of view of the consumers. We're thinking that there should be the independent and informed consumers, and this other is the guided consumers, what we don't like so much. I know also that so larger the companies, because we have the discussion now also in Brussels, so larger the company, and it's a rule, it's not that evident, so more they're likely for the ample. So smaller the company, not. Because you have a lot, my members from Spain, Italy, Greece, they're running to me because they're small producers of traditional food, what is since hundreds of years there, and they are not healthy anymore. So it's starting with olive oil, it's going to honey, and there are things to include this and so on. But I think what we don't forget, the unhealthy persons are always the poorest persons. It is a social problem also. It's an education problem. And I have to say, we doing not the ample for the well-educated people who make the smoothie running in the morning. It is also a rule, so healthier you live, so more healthy you are eating. And the people who has not the education of the time, they eat unhealthy, if there's an ample on it or not.
Yeah.
And we have this already, some products already in Lidl or so on, they have already this ample because you do this as a test run or so on. But the intention is perhaps good, but I'm very critical to it.
Who tells me what is healthy?
Thank you so much. I will just before letting, of course, fair answer. Just one example. There are a lot of studies around on, particularly on sugar taxes. There is one interesting study about Chile, where Chile, as I mentioned earlier, introduced those black dots, and they work for the high income part of the population where the sugar was reduced. They didn't work for the lower income of population. So it's a very interesting, but again, it's a great debate. I want first, of course, Per to answer or bring more arguments on the table, and always recognizing the great job they are doing otherwise. And I want to thank again Per for being here in this crowd of crazy libertarians. Sometimes those are too crazy for me. And there are a lot of aspects. One is the harmonization, of course. So if somebody's against the directive, sometimes I think we need some directives anyway. Then there is the point of the small, medium enterprises. But please, Per, if you want to answer or if you want to add any argument.
Sure, thank you, Pietro. There's so many interesting comments I have to say, so many threads to follow up on here. But I have to say, one thing you touched upon is, the individuality. One thing is not healthy for another person and so on. You mentioned the athletes and the old man and so on. And that's, of course, how it is. But that's not actually, and that's another thread. I'm not going to talk too much about that. But personalized nutrition is, of course, another very interesting area where you can see how it fits your individual and so on, your personal needs. But that I see those things as not opposing each other. Both are needed. We need to address the issues with health, and personalized nutrition is definitely, Nestlé is looking into that and working a lot with that one as well. But it takes engagement, it takes motivation to perhaps understand your curiosity and so on. Not all people have that, and everyone, whether and the labeling, that's part of actually enabling you to make your own decision, to make an informed choice. And that's really, of course, a liberal standpoint as well. If you want to take care of your health, you need to be able to make that decision in store. And in store, it works kind of different ways. You don't Google, you don't have the time, you need to go fast, you need to have something that's easy, accessible, and so on. And that's Nutri Score is efficient in that way. And I see some of you react that it's quite directive, it's green, that tells you what to eat. You shouldn't eat that, or you should eat that, and the red. So the color scheme, I see people are a bit, react on that one because it's too directive. But we have already tried non-directive labels like the reference intake, the GDA. No one uses that, I have to say. So it's really, it's difficult to understand and too complicated. You need to spend too much time in store to evaluate it. So this one is, it is directive. I see some people react to it, but it's still, when you're in that situation in store, sometimes you need a bit direction, and of course some people can neglect it and perhaps choose just the red one, but that's kind of a silent protest and only damaging yourself. So, yeah.
But Mr. Jäger and Dr. Heitz said some very interesting things. Look, you as a big company, yes, for you it makes sense to do this labeling because you are able to do so. The higher production costs for you isn't the problem, but for the little companies it's a problem. So, and Nestlé, it's in Europe. I don't know why, but not the best rumor. So you can also greenwashing a little. So I think it makes sense that you say, okay, let's do labeling. We are Nestlé, but look, we are following. But I think we shouldn't regulate the people because the next step will be, and I promise you, we will have shock pictures on nutrition and on bottles to show what happens if you don't follow the regulations. Yes, they will show fat people and people dying. That will be the next step.
Yeah, let's hope we don't get there though.
But it is
No,
you.
Oh, I see the debate is warming up. I said maybe I can say our initiative, but I want to leave it to the floor. So it's always the two of you. So Mr. Jäger, go ahead.
Another simple example, the Bavarian brezel, so salt. So we're not only talking about sugar.
Yes.
So we are talking of everything in the product. And for sure it's not too healthy. every normal educated person should know if he eats too much sugar, it's not healthy. Same with salt, it will kill you. But the Commission wanted to forbid salt on the brezel too because it's not healthy. And then we started, it was campaigning, it's an individual thing. So and also bakery, that's sweets for sure. It's not healthy to eat it every day. It's nice or not, but that's a big question. It's a consumer behavior. And
But I have a question on this for all.
Let me add this a second question. You label now with this kind of labeling A to E. Now we come ESG, the new green financing, and all these topics. So what is the next label on for Nestlé? The way you produce, but it's normal to have this ecological responsibility. It's clear in your message, but is it the next what we have to label on products? So at the long run, and is it a fair trade and for people and also for animal? Which new next labels do you want to have on this package? Because that's the actual discussion in the European level. How should I decide as an uneducated consumer? It's good for my health, but it's good and environmental. Yes, no. So what comes next?
Thanks for the question. Then you still have a question? But before coming to you, I don't want to. I'm taking an anti-Nutri Score approach, but I don't need now. It's not just Nestlé, of course, that is supporting this initiative. There's a bunch of several companies was mentioned, and also government. So I'm surprised because one of the governments, the new elected government that's supporting this initiative is the German government.
Yeah,
so
then we
come to that later on.
German support it.
And I see a lot of Germans in this group, but we come to that. So before
there is against it, and the Socialists and Greens are supporting this. So there's a new coalition. There are Greens. And
but the Liberal too.
Yeah, they're all. But this is not this point where they want to make points in this coalition.
Okay.
So, but they were always against this in the European
But
Parliament.
we'll let Per answer again. If there is a comment, please go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, I see what I want to say. You have many products. What I see, consumer right to inform is very important. But you have many products and also others who are misleading. Fresh air, strawberries on it, where you say it's healthy for children, chocolate and whatever. We're making now this Nutri Score on it, but in fact the whole package is misleading signs on it. The second thing is what I see problematic is in the green areas or in these Nutri Scores, you can really push the consumer to buy exactly these products where you can make the prices high and make the more profit. It is really so that we have also not discussing, not evidence, that it's really a possibility that you say in this range we're green, this is cost, we make the price size, we can really put the consumer in this direction. There are worries in this where I have to say why we don't tackle the real problem, the misleading, and second, why we have really to lead this and where is the effect is that there will be not only more profit out and prices will rising for products who are green.
Thanks. I have another question, but I want to enlarge a bit the debate and beyond the Nutri Score itself, because this seems to be a crucial point. And again, in many conferences I had, it comes up, and it's very hard to answer because we tend to say it's about culture, it's about education, but how can we support this education? Because it's true what Per said correctly before is when you go to the supermarket, you are mostly in a hurry. You don't have time to read. I personally believe people should be aware, should be knowledge, should have knowledge. But the question is, how can we spread this knowledge? How can we help kids? I know the answer is culture, education, but is there a way politically, also the libertarian family, the classical liberal family, can help this education? There's a question?
Yeah, I got 2 points. One is, sorry. The first question is when the allergy were implemented, many restaurants started to use pre-cooked food instead of preparing itself. And I think similar problems will arise with the Nutri Score. You stop producing yourself, but you rely on what the industry provides you with? That's the first question. And the second is, whenever there is a way to push people into one direction, it will most likely end up with an increasing tax on the bad thing.
Okay, this is the last too many questions and text for the live debate. I let Per and Ralf, or we can turn around Ralf and Per as you guys wish, and then we'll start. Thanks a lot.
All right, I see. I mean, this is of course, it's an added value to have a green on pack, and there are a lot of added values products, within the premium range and everything, and reasons to take a bit more and so on. This is also, so it depends on how you deal with it and how you, what you make out of it. But there's also an opportunity to perhaps do the other way around as well, to make like, okay, let's have a discount or something for products with its green label, make like 2 for 1 or something like that, those deals. Yeah, it could go either way, definitely. Yes, and what else was it about the misleading part? Of course, that is something, it's difficult to say why we're misleading without seeing the actual product, of course, but it is very regulated what we can say and how we can communicate towards consumers. If there are no strawberries in that pack, we can have a strawberry on packets, and that's something we want to enable, to be able to explain to the consumer what's in a product, and that's why we prefer a Nutri Score, to have that too, just to show them what we're doing and what's in the product, to be more transparent. So it's a lot about transparency. I can also say that someone mentioned the socioeconomic factor, vulnerable areas, and the problems. That's where the largest health problems are, of course. Those are the ones where we should aim the support, and that's where Nutri Score also proved to stand out, that it is performing well in those areas. So, yeah.
Thanks, Per. Ralf?
Yes, we should more honest and to the people, because there are always aims behind. What you said was very interesting with the allergies. For example, as we have to publish it, now in the gastronomy, you have to show if they are, but also in the products, if they are gluten. How do we call it in English? Gluten. Yes. Is inside. And yes, if you have the allergy against gluten, it's a very strange disease. And about 1 to 2% societies told us have this allergy. And suddenly 20 to 30% said, yes, but I feel it. And I have to aware, and I have to be careful and nothing to eat, because I'm in fear to have also this disease. Yes, and we create diseases through such regulations. That's crazy. Yes, and on the other hand, also it was mentioned: what is healthy? Is Coca-Cola healthy or not? Definitely. If you have Coca-Cola light or zero, it has to be, and the Nutri Score, green, because there's no sugar in it. And definitely olive oil, is it healthy or not? I don't know. My scientists say no evidence is for
Italians say
yes. It is fat and it had to be red. So in our normal feeling, it's different. Because we feel, too much drinking cola is bad, not so good. And to use olive oil seems Mediterranean, and that's a good cooking. So, therefore, and also in this Congress, I think, with libertarians, I think we should really be careful then to create a nanny state where politicians tell us what we have to do and what we have not to do.
Thank you. If there's no other question, you wanted to quit because you're in a rush. You see, it's very German. It's telling you when, telling Italian when to quit. Now we go on for another 2 hours. No, really. Thank you very much. I think we need, and I'm talking also to the Austrian Economic Center, we need more of this debate because this is going to be a topic, the one of sustainability. And during lunch, we talk a lot about renewable energies. That's another big challenge. You know, the European Commissioner a few days ago said, solar panel on every roof around Europe, so that's another interesting debate on how to produce energy in a sustainable way or not. Today we had a discussion on food. Obviously, we cannot conclude it in 1 hour. As you know, as Competere, we strongly go against the Nutri Score, but it was very important for us to bring the debate here, and hopefully we will, again, with Per or other friends, bring and enlarge the debate also with different perspective. And in a way, I want to thank Per very much and Nestlé for the work they're doing. I'm sure they are not doing to kill the market, but actually they are going to increase the market. So in a way, we are very supportive of the great work they do on sustainability, particularly on all the investment that these great companies are doing. I'm sure next time we can also talk about new foods. And one thing, guys, is that most of the time we are in a room, it's us, let's say, a bit older, but young generation have a totally different perspective. So maybe when we talk about Nutri Score, they have a totally different perspective. And I want to thank Ralf for being here and all of you. I want to end with a German doctor, or one of the first doctors, and how do you want to call it? Physicians or philosopher, Paracelsus.
Yes.
It's not the ingredient, but it's obviously the quantity.
Yes.
I also want to end that we are in Sweden, a country where you have to go to a specific shop to buy alcohol. And I came the first time in '98, and I had to go to that shop to get drunk. And still today, so 22 years later, I need to go before 6 o'clock, before it closes, to get drunk. But I'm sure here, the European Resource Bank today will provide the booze sufficiently for us, so we don't have to go to the system. Again, thanks Per, thanks Rob, thanks to all of you,
Thank you.
and we talk next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.